Speak the truth. We fear the power of honesty. We are afraid of the truth. Point blank, period. We don't like hearing it, sharing it, or seeing it. The truth can be the boogeyman. What's wild is that the truth is essential in a well-functioning society, so how are we doing when it isn't welcome, let alone prioritized? We're doing terribly. We fear honesty because it exposes the rawness of life and our flaws, which we are too willing to ignore. It calls us to the carpet, because once you know, you can't unsee the ugliness of what was exposed. You might even have to do something about it. The truth challenges us to change and be better, and those are all tall orders. We are also afraid of rocking the boat, which often comes with speaking the truth. We don't want to disrupt harmony in our spaces, and that tends to happen when we challenge what feels comfortable or expected. This is why I believe that one of the biggest forms of courage is being radically honest and transparent. One of my favorite quotes is, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes." Opening parenthesis. Google never knows exactly who said it, as it's attributed to, like, 5 different dead old white guys. But it's a whole fact. There was a study done by the University of Massachusetts that found that in a single 10-minute conversation, most people lied at least once. It's what we do, and we're so used to comfort and harmony that we put those above all else. It's not that we're all lying for the sake of it, we are doing it for self-preservation and to be liked. But oftentimes, it bites us in the ass. It is part of why we are in constant disorder. Do I lie? For sure. Everyone does. I'm not gonna sit up here and tell you I don't because that would be a lie. But I try really hard not to spew falsities, and I've been that way since I was young. I've known for a long time that I don't know how to lie well because I don't have a poker face at all. My face is a visual outside voice and all my thoughts are loudly written on it. When I'm lying, you can tell. Growing up, I wasn't the kid who was getting in trouble for climbing trees or touching fire. I was a very self-assured child, so when I got in trouble, it was because of my mouth. I was always defending myself or somebody else. "That's not fair," was one of my favorite phrases as a mini-human. In fact, I'd often get in trouble for saying something that was so direct that it would come across as rude, then I'd get in further trouble when I'd try to justify what I said. And when I was punished, I didn't understand why I was in trouble for telling the truth. My very Nigerian mom probably wanted to wring my mouth a few times. I'm actually sure she did. And when she did punish me, I'd tell her that I felt offended and that she owed me an apology. I would write her letters expressing my disappointment in her disappointment and how I felt like I got the short end of the stick. Bruh, I really tried it. Petite and bold. Even though I'd take whatever punishment came my way, I've known for a long time that truths make people deeply uncomfortable. What did I do, as the professional troublemaker that I am? Made a career out of it. But that was a true accidental happening. I started my first blog in 2003, as a freshman in college. It was before Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that, back when MySpace was on its last legs. I enjoyed talking about my undergrad life and all the ensuing shenanigans. Writing my thoughts online was a gift to myself, because it allowed me to write in the way that felt most authentic, most real, most truthful. Blogging was not a career for me then, because it was still considered playing on the internet. But because I didn't consider it a career, I couldn't fail at it. That was a gift. Since I had no expectations, I didn't doubt my writing or my voice. And when you are writing like nobody's reading, it's going to come out in the truest way possible because there's no agenda. That lack of pretense allowed me to write the things that sometimes made people feel uncomfortable. And as people began to see me as the person writing what they were thinking but didn't dare to say, I gained an audience. As my blog got bigger and bigger and I got my first awards for it, I realized that people thought my work was extraordinary. I was confused, and not even on some fake humble shit. Seriously, I was like, why? All I'm doing is writing what I think about the world and telling what I see as truth. Then I wondered what everyone else was doing. Were they bullshitting? Were they in these streets not coming correct? It was years before I realized that what made me stand out was the simple act of being straightforward and authentic. I wrote without deceit. Collectively, we aren't used to truthfulness. It's not because we are bad people, but we shirk honesty so often, even in small instances, that when the big moments come, we don't have the language or capacity for them. If we lie in casual conversations, what happens when we're confronted with important things that really matter or make an impact? We don't have the practice. I'll give you an example of a small moment. Your friend walks up to you and says, "So I got this new haircut from a new stylist. Do you like it?" You look at your friend and somehow their bangs are cut crooked and this stylist has sabotaged their hair. It's not really curling all the way over. Your instinct is to instantly say, "Yes, of course I love it." Because right then, you don't want to hurt your friend's feelings or rock the friendship boat. I understand. But then your friend takes a selfie and drops it on Instagram. Now they have a different angle of this haircut and they're like, "Ah hell. That was not what I wanted. This looks really janky." They come back to you and say, "I just posted my picture on Instagram. Why didn't you tell me my bangs were busted? I asked you if you liked my haircut, and you said you did." Your friend knows you lied to them. You didn't love their haircut. I know you wanted to make sure you didn't hurt their feelings, but now your friend has a reason to doubt your word. The next time they ask for your opinion, they might be wondering if you're telling them the truth or giving them an answer that appeases, without candor. In a world that is overflowing with things to side-eye and question, let us not be the type of people who others feel the constant need to distrust. Instead, I want us to be the friends or village members who others count on not only to please them, but to see them at their best. In that way, honesty is a love language. Affirm me with facts. I cannot say I am my sister's or brother's keeper if I'm expected to lie to you constantly. How can I care for you when I can't be open and honest with you? So how would I deal with that small moment of the haircut gone wrong? Well, two ways. If it's completely messed up and your dye job is weak, I might have to tell you since you asked me. If it's simply not my taste, I might reply with something like, "What matters is that you like it. If you like it, I'm good with it." Smooth. You can't accuse me of lying. Of course, I also believe in friends don't let friends be raggedy without telling them. But what about the times when somebody asks us something big or drops a problem at our feet and says, "What do you think?" What about when we are faced with injustice that makes us feel less than, or someone else is doing something that harms us and we have the opportunity to address it? Because we don't want to bring tension, we might let the truth go by the wayside. I see meetings as a microcosm of the world and how we move through it. You can test out life in a meeting, and Lord of the Flies can happen. How many of us have been in meetings where somebody drops an idea that is at worst terrible and at best ill thought out? All of us. The answer is all of us. When it happens, often the room goes silent as people try to decide whether they should say something and challenge it. Oftentimes, no challenges ever come. Whenever I see public backlash from a company or brand for airing an insensitive commercial or tone-deaf campaign, I always wonder who was in the room. Who did not tell the truth about the whackness of whatever it was? There is always at least one person there who knows the shit ain't gone land well. I always wonder, why didn't that person speak up? Person 1. They're tired of always being the one to speak up, so they're taking a break. Person 2. They felt it wasn't their department or charge, so it has nothing to do with them. Person 3. They felt like it wouldn't be welcome in that room. Person 4. They felt like they would get punished for challenging it. All of these are valid reasons. If you are person 1, I feel you on a spiritual level. You've earned a break, and you are really hoping someone else picks up the trash. I am not even mad at you. Person 2, I also get it that you want to mind your business. Unfortunately, this is your business. It can affect you if the results of the campaign hit the brand hard and they have to make cuts as a result. It can quickly become your business. We are too willing to absolve ourselves of responsibility about the things that happen in our midst under the guise of minding our business, and it is to all of our detriments. If our neighbor's house is on fire, we cannot take comfort in the fact that it isn't our fire because that smoke can reach our houses next. It is in our best interest to help them put out the fire before it becomes ours, because everyone's well-being should be community business. Person 3 has detected that the atmosphere is probably one of gaslighting, and they don't feel empowered to speak up. Person 4 has probably seen someone suffer for speaking the truth. Persons 3 and 4, I feel you on a visceral level. You want to preserve self because you've seen others somehow get negative responses. You have all the right to not wield your authenticity because it might very well be weaponized against you. While many people can say they experience this, black women in particular are put into these situations on a regular basis. Black women show up to work every day having no room for error and no defenders, especially in crucial moments. In my life, I know I'm supposed to work for myself. Why? Because after hearing the stories daily about what black people deal with when it comes to their white coworkers who can't handle anything remotely close to the truth, I realize I don't have the tools to work within a corporate environment. They gotta do their jobs and make sure they are not offending the tender sensibilities of Chad and Becky. It's a lot. If I worked in an office, I would absolutely get an annual review saying that I was aggressive, and I would eventually get fired. I know this because I don't have the tools. I firmly believe that black women are the adults in the room of the world. We're so often in the role of chaperone, not because we want to be but because we have no other choice. We're thrust to the front of the class because we realize that the whole place will go down in flames if we aren't there. I believe black women are the moral center of the universe, and can't nobody tell me different. In spite of the fact that we have our heads stepped on, are disrespected constantly, and are treated like we are disposable, we show up. We speak up, show out, and stand up for everyone, even those who don't deserve it. We catch hell for it. But folks don't listen to us like they should. Things would be so much calmer if the world honored our voices more. There'd be less chaos, more equity, and less suffering if folks understood that black women got the answers. We're basically part of the largest group project ever, and unfortunately our grade depends on everyone else. We're the ones who refuse to get an F, so we do all the work and everyone benefits from the A that we, and only we, earned. For us, the compulsion to preserve self is beyond earned, and I salute sisters who are navigating in the best way they know how. I salute those of you who have to deal with the microaggressions, the micro-appreciations, and the mega-prejudice every day. I see you. You are superheroes. So when you still decide to speak up in spite of all this, I know it's a gift. One that we cannot take for granted. Now we need everyone else to step up and speak out. I won't lie to you and say, follow your heart, speak the truth, and nothing bad happens. Nah. Shit can get real and there can be consequences. There is certainly risk to speaking up. However, I would rather risk that than risk regretting my inaction or my silence. I think a lot about the poet Audre Lorde asking, what are the words you do not yet have? What do you need to say? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own, until you will sicken and die of them, still in silence? I don't want to hold on to these tyrannies. My disappointment in myself is a much greater consequence to me than other people's disappointment in me. So how do you find the courage to speak up knowing that there can be fallout? When we are afraid of telling the truth or making a room uncomfortable, the first thing we need to do is figure out the consequence we are afraid of. What is that thing? And then what is the worst case scenario that comes from that thing? Maybe you'll get written up by human resources, HR, or maybe your client will drop you if you challenge their idea. Or is it that you might get fired if you speak up? What is it that scares you most about telling the truth in this moment? Now, if that thing happens, can you figure it out? If you'll be fired and you need that money to eat, by all means, file your nails in that meeting and watch it go to hell. Most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, so a disruption to their pockets doesn't bode well for how they can live. My challenge here, however, is to those who are financially secure and not acutely afraid of not having a home if they can't work for 2 months. On Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you have the physiological and safety needs handled, this is for you. You have the room to take some risks. Yes, you. We're often so afraid of the consequences that come with speaking up and making rooms uncomfortable that we don't think about the best case scenario that could happen if we actually do this thing. If the consequence is you get fired, is that an actual place you want to work? If you can get fired for challenging one idea in one meeting, is that company worth your time and energy? If the consequence is not that you'll be fired or written up, then what is actually on the line if you speak up? Is it that you won't be liked by whoever you challenged? I've made a career out of being a straight shooter. Not because I walk out the house saying, "Yay, time to make people uncomfortable today," but because I understand that if I'm supposed to show up in the best way possible, I can't be quiet if what's going on around me is not okay. I feel like I have no choice but to be the challenger. Being a truth teller is no walk in the park. It is exhausting always feeling like you have to be the adult in the room. It is tiring to be the challenger with no backup. But I also think rooms are elevated when we're in them. If people know you are in the room, then they might be less inclined to bring rubbish in with them because they know you'll throw it out. It means they know they better come as correct as they can so they don't hear your mouth. Similarly, if you're in the room with the person who's going to ask the questions that matter, the person who's going to say, "Is this idea as fully thought out and as thoughtful as it could be?" You will not present half-baked ideas. If we all exist in a world where we know that everybody's expecting the best of us, that is what we're going to bring into the room. Challenging people or systems is not easy, even if you've been doing it all your life. It is an intentional decision folks make. When I turned 30, I went skydiving because one of my friends asked me to go with him. When he asked, I said yes so quickly that I couldn't take it back. It was such a strong yes that even I was shocked. Being a woman of my word, I stuck to it. So we traveled to some out-of-the-way place on Long Island and signed all types of documents basically saying if we went splat, no one was liable. We got on the plane and went up something like 15,000 feet. I was strapped to the professional guy who was jumping with me, and as we were getting closer, he strapped me so tight that I was off my seat. My whole weight was on him, and that actually gave me comfort because I was like, well, now you have skin in the game because if I die, you die too. Great. Let's do this. That momentary piece of courage instantly disappeared when we were sitting at the edge of the plane and I was seeing the earth beneath me. I was like, oh, this is a bad idea. I've done some stupid things. This is one of them. Why am I doing this on purpose? I'm paying somebody to fall out of a perfectly good plane. Talk about first world problems. The moment when we fell out of the plane, I actually forgot how to breathe for 3 seconds. It was as if my body's reflexes were like, nope, we're not good at this. No. Then my body was like, remember. Okay. Do that using your lungs thing. I took a deep breath at some point as we were free falling. And the parachute popped open and we started floating in the sky as my jumper gave me an aerial tour of the New York area. It was stunning, and I was so glad I did this nutty thing. When we landed, I even landed on my feet. When I want to say something that might feel uncomfortable or difficult or bigger than me, I go back to that time when I jumped out of the plane and lost my breath for 3 seconds. I think about how when I caught my breath and was able to look at the earth, in wonderment, all I saw was beauty. It was the best thing I could have done. It felt right, even as it was still petrifying. Even though I've had practice being the truth teller and the challenger all my life, telling the truth feels scary each time. I say this because a lot of times people believe that being honest comes easy for challengers. I say this because a lot of times people believe that being honest comes easy for challengers. They think, oh, you've been doing this for a while. You're used to it. You're fine. No, it's never really fine. You just get used to the practice of telling this truth in spite of the fact that it's scary. If you think about those challengers, the people who constantly make others uncomfortable with their truths, or who show up in the best way they can no matter what room they're in, and you think, I wish I could do that, I'm here to say you can. How do you decide when to speak up or challenge? Being a professional troublemaker is not for the sake of making people uncomfortable, or being a contrarian, or making a room tense. Challenging is about expecting the best of everybody and making sure that they're seeing their blind spots. How do you do this? Be human. Every single day we have to walk with empathy in the rooms that we're in. We have to see people from where they're at, and we have to recognize their actual humanity. Sometimes when it's really tough to challenge somebody, I say, okay, as your fellow global citizen, I feel the obligation to challenge you in this way. Questions are also a really great way of challenging people. This is what happens in therapy. Your therapist is really asking you a whole bunch of questions, without telling you much, letting you lead yourself to the solution. So sometimes being the challenger is simply asking really good questions. The terrible meeting idea. Reply with, have you thought about this deeper? What other angles might we look at this from? What are the challenges that might come up if we take this action? The racist joke someone tells. Ask them, can you explain it to me? So they have to now put words to their prejudice. We've all met or been somebody who's tactless in telling the truth. That's who we conjure up when we think of someone who is a challenger or professional troublemaker. We're thinking about the person who keeps it real in the wrongest way. Don't be that person who is loud and contrarian or cruel for no reason. Be the person who's thoughtful as you do it. Now, I'm not saying you will not ruffle feathers even if you want to be thoughtful. But if you attempt to be as well informed as possible, you are at least minimizing the risk. That's all you can do. I ask myself 3 questions before I say something that might shake the table. Do you mean it? Is this thing something I actually believe? Can you defend it? Being the challenger, I also have to be okay with being questioned and prodded. My ideas need to be explored deeper. Can I stand in it and justify it? Do I have receipts? Can you say it thoughtfully or with love? Is my intention good here? I might think I am righteous in my indignation or in my questioning, but am I saying it thoughtfully or with love? No matter how righteous it feels, no matter how true it might feel, if I say this thing in a way that's hateful or that makes people feel demeaned or less than, the message will not land. Do you mean it? Can you defend it? Can you say it with love? If the answer is yes to all 3, I say it and I let the chips fall. Whether I need to present a challenge in a meeting, or to a friend, or to my mom, I run this checklist to keep myself from being completely tactless. It holds me accountable to what I'm really saying and keeps me in check with myself. It's not a foolproof method, and there are still times I make mistakes or say something I shouldn't. But these questions help you keep your intentions good. Mind you, good intentions might still make for bad impact, but they give you a place to start. Be as thoughtful as you can be. How the challenge lands isn't in your control. Once you have thought about it, you're not being impulsive, you're not being hateful, you're being your solid self, you've done your best. Each of these questions serves a purpose in ensuring that I stay on solid ground. They are my checkpoints. They are my way of ensuring that even when I'm angry or emotional, I can pause and say, wait a minute, is this thing worth saying? Is this the way you want to show up? It gives me courage to say yes, this is how. The other thing we need to be aware of when we want to speak the truth is the power we walk with. In my first book, I talked about doing the privilege walk in college. It's an exercise where participants stand in a straight line horizontally in a room. People's hands are resting on the shoulders of the people next to them. The moderator then reads a series of questions, prompting them to either step forward or to step back. For example, step forward if you can easily find a band-aid in your skin tone in stores. Step back if your name is frequently mispronounced. Step forward if you attending college was a foregone conclusion. As you move farther apart, you actually have to break apart from your neighbor. At the end of it, everyone is in different positions. It is a physical representation of power and privilege, and it is incredibly compelling. Because of my privilege as a straight, Christian, cisgender woman who comes from educated parents, I ended up in the middle. When I looked back and saw some of my classmates behind me, I remember feeling this visceral sense of responsibility because I wanted them right next to me. The fact that I had to break with them made me feel guilty. I realized then that one of my purposes is to make sure that I don't have to see people behind me. If there are people behind me, I need to find a way to get them by my side. This is important because when I walk into rooms, I have to recognize the power that I'm walking in with. That realization drives my voice and lets me know that I should say the tough thing. If we leave our power behind, or don't even recognize that we have it, we risk thinking we can't do things that are difficult. As a professional speaker, I know that when I am on stage in any room, I am the most influential person right then. Why? Because I'm the one with the mic. I can step off the stage and that can instantly change, but in the 55 minutes when I hold the mic, I lead. My job is to disrupt what's happening and to use that clout to make sure somebody else who has less authority feels just as significant and seen. Or that someone who doesn't have the mic still feels heard. I am not in the room to make the executives comfortable. I'm there to speak for the intern who couldn't get a word in at the meeting. One of my friends, who happens to be a brilliant activist and teacher, Brittany Packnett Cunningham, introduced me to the phrase, "spend your privilege." She got it from disability rights advocate Rebecca Cockley. It is the concept that the privilege we have in this world is endless. It doesn't run out. You don't use your voice today and have to re-up the next day. Power is limitless, and using ours for other people does not diminish it. We have to utilize our influence, capabilities, and money for the greater good. I don't ask people to do the things that I don't ask of myself first. Oftentimes, we need to see somebody else try something risky before we think we can do it. And my career has been a lot of risky moments, but I always use myself as an example. I'm this black woman who has ended up in some grand rooms, in spite of often being a loudmouth. I'm not asking the most marginalized people among us to be the ones taking this mantle on. I'm challenging those who are rich, white, straight, and cisgender to do the work. Stop waiting on the rest of the world. And if you decide to wait, make yourself useful. Let's go back to the meetings. If you are not the truth teller in the room, you can at least be backup for them. If you aren't going to be the first domino, be the second. If I am typically the person who starts off and asks us to rethink whatever the idea is, having someone chime in with their affirmation of my challenge is refreshing and incredibly helpful. If you believe in the challenge, back it up, because there is strength in numbers. No one wants to be on an island, standing by themselves. That being said, there are times when I don't always want to be the truth teller. There are times when I sit and think today's going to be the day when I do not say anything. I'm not challenging. I'm not asking the questions. We're so often passing the baton to other people, thinking it's their job to tell the truth, but what happens when the challenger decides to take a break? We can't take for granted the person who usually challenges, because it is not just one person's job, it is everyone's jobs. We all need to be the challenger, but everyone is waiting on Superman, when they have red capes too. For women, this strength in numbers is especially important because we're in spaces where we're constantly being interrupted. Or somebody else will say the exact same thing we just said and get credit for our idea. It's easy to ignore one and it's hard to ignore two. You can't erase three. Strength in troublemaking numbers is necessary. Instead, many of us are too willing to be quiet when it's needed and dole out empty micro-appreciations. If after the meeting you walk up to the challenger and say, OMG, I'm so glad you said that. Then you're trolling in micro appreciation. You're telling me when nobody's listening. The currency I needed is not even usable, and nobody's here to see it. If you cannot back me up in the actual meeting, what is the point? Let's do less of that, and make sure that in the room, we're proverbially taking a stand, not waiting till it's all cleared out. Actually stand next to that person. Use your words to affirm people out loud and give them more credence. So many people have to deal with that every single day, and I want that to happen less. And that's why I say kudos to people in corporate environments who have to work with people who are not being courageous or are being silently courageous to them after the fact, which is not courage. I know I would have been fired a couple of times by now. Because if I were on the receiving end of micro appreciation, I would have been like, you know what, keep that. And then somebody would have reported me to HR, and then here we are. Because I focus less on the niceties of it all. I want to be kind to you by making sure that I'm showing up for you, by making sure that I'm speaking up when you're afraid to. But what about the moments when I don't want to speak up? Who speaks up for me? Who speaks up for the person who is the challenger? A lot of people wonder why they are surrounded by people who lie to them. It's because they've proven themselves to be people who cannot be trusted with honesty, lest they weaponize it. If you have an environment where people will be punished for speaking up, then you gotta deal with the consequences of shitty work. If you're the friend who hangs up on their friends anytime they try to tell you about your whack-ass choices, then they'll probably keep quiet as you continue to be secretary of team bad decisions. It's the bed you made, so lie in it. You want more honesty around you? Ask for it. We have to create spaces that welcome people to feel comfortable to speak and challenge. If there's someone who is usually quiet, seek them out. Hey, I would love to hear what you have to say. I'd love to hear your feedback and questions. I know a lot of us have been dominating this conversation, but your voice is important. So can you tell us what you think? Speak the truth, not only to your Facebook friends, but to your family. What is the use of yelling about racism or homophobia or transphobia or patriarchy to the randoms who hit a button to get our content if we aren't challenging those we know in real life? We sometimes think we're doing work by being loud online, but then we'll be quiet in the rooms we're in, quiet around the people we can touch, quiet in front of the real circle of influence we have. Speak truth to those closest to you, not just the random behind the screen. A lot of people think they have no platform. You do. Your platform is your kin, squad, colleagues. Do the work close to home so you can have far-reaching consequences. We are most easily moved by the words that come out of the mouths of our loved ones. I think a lot about the moment when I almost didn't say something because I was told there could be negative consequences. I think about when I was deeply uncomfortable because I could have lost a lot of my livelihood when I spoke out against a conference that was engaging in pay inequality. And I think about the anxiety that I walked into those moments with. But if I only tell the truth when it's easy, what's the point of whatever power or privilege I have? Truth telling has to be done in the moments when it's really hard. That's when it actually makes the most difference. And yes, we're afraid of the worst case scenario happening, but what if the best case scenario happens? What if we change systems in the rooms that we're in, or we change the people we come across because we dare to be people who decided to show up and use our necessary voices? I say this as a black woman who is constantly speaking truth to power, who is trying to do it in the most real way she knows how, who sometimes missteps. The greater version of ourselves is the version that is willing to be courageous in the very tough moments. Because those are typically when we need to be most courageous. When it's that scary, when you want to go hide under a blanket, when somebody is telling you that you should be more quiet, do not be more quiet. If you're compelled to do or say this thing, then you're probably supposed to do or say it. We need to prioritize the truth, because the world is full of things to point out, injustices to fight, systems to dismantle. If we're not starting with honesty, how do we know the problems we need to tackle? You don't fix something you don't know is broken. You don't lie your way to an equitable world or coddle your way to equity. We gotta find our individual integrity and our collective candor for the greater good, and we start by being honest, in whatever space we're in. A lot of us are risking smaller things than we realize when we choose speaking truth. Real truth tellers are the freedom fighters who have been literally beat up, jailed, or killed for daring to challenge the status quo. The Black Panthers we are not, as we sit in glass spaces afraid to simply tell someone, that's not a good idea. What we are putting on the line is usually not our lives or our freedom. No one said this would be easy, but the things worth doing are usually not easy. You knew that, though. Truth telling is a muscle, and like all muscles, it needs practice and exercise to be built. I hate working out, and anyone who says it's fun is a liar and a cheat. Yet I do it because if I don't, it is to my own detriment. I will suffer most for it. Being a gatekeeper of truth takes practice. When I first started doing public speaking, my voice would shake for the first 5 to 10 minutes I was on stage. I'm not sure if anybody else detected it, but I sure did. And I kept talking, and eventually my voice stopped shaking. I don't know when it happened, but one day I got on stage and I realized my voice wasn't shaking anymore. I reflect on the words of the world-changing good troublemaker John Lewis. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something, to say something, and not be quiet. We have a moral obligation to tell the truth. Tell the truth, even when our voices shake. Tell the truth even when it might rock the boat. Tell the truth, even when there might be consequences. Because that in itself makes us more courageous than most people in the world. Use the 3 questions. Know your voice is necessary, and speak truth to power. Even a whisper of truth makes a difference in an echo chamber of lies. Fail loudly. We fear failing. Failing sucks. We are afraid that people will see our slips showing and find out something about us that will give them ammunition to attack us. We are afraid we will say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, so to protect ourselves, we say and do nothing of note. Old gray zone living selves. If you're living a life of color, of impact, of note, you will make mistakes. You will fuck up. You will show you are an everlasting fool who constantly needs to get their shit together. And that's okay. Because failure is necessary. It's essential for us to live loudly. It is painful, it is usually unexpected, and it can knock us on our asses. I have failed a lot, and I have failed out loud. It is a rite of passage for your greater good, and we must learn from it. In 2018, on the day Aretha Franklin died and we all collectively mourned her, the conversation turned to who would do her tribute. What artists could live up to Ms. Franklin's legacy to memorialize her in song? Names were being thrown around online, and someone suggested the name of a beloved R&B artist who was big in the early 1990s. In my occasional impulsiveness, having not heard the person's name in a long time or noticed them release any new music in at least 15 years, I tweeted, "Under what rock did they pull that name from?" A few people were like, "That's actually a good suggestion." A lot more people were like, "Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of them first in this tribute lineup." The conversation continued as more names were thrown in the pot. All was well. Or so I thought. I woke up the next morning to my replies being in utter shambles on Twitter. The conversation had shifted to the fact that since I was not born in the United States, and therefore not African American, I should sit out the conversation. Thus started the biggest public fail I've ever had. My friends started hitting me up as they began seeing it all over their own timelines, and I asked them for advice. Should I reply to this? Should I let it ride? Should I speak up for myself? Should I act like I don't see it and tweet other random things? I chose the sit this out route for hours until someone tweeted something that I felt was derogatory about me. That's when my ego took charge and I replied. I responded by saying something about how I noticed that they were trying to other me. I also threw in something about them being suppressed by what I considered to be a simple tweet inquiring about how someone pulled up that particular musician's name. That was me throwing gasoline on the fire, which caused it to now rage. And rage it did. My name ended up trending on Twitter. I was the number 8 most tweeted about subject in all of the United States for about an hour. Half the people were calling me everything but a child of God, and the other half were wondering why this word Luvvie was all up in their timeline. The one who was usually doing the judging was being judged. And very, very loudly. I logged off. I knew it was bad because I kept getting all types of texts from people checking in on me. You good? I see what's happening. I'm sorry. Let me know if you need me. People were saying I was an entitled Nigerian who didn't know what the hell she was talking about. Folks dug deeper into my tweets, looking for ways to show that I was anti-American and anti-Black American, and anything that could be deemed offensive. Think pieces were written about me, and my name was plastered everywhere, it felt like. Anything I ever said about being black in America was up for scrutiny. I was dragged. I felt beat up on and lied about. So I wrote a response in a blog post, explaining myself and talking about how much I was not the person I was being accused of being. Long story short, I didn't approach it well because nowhere in it did I say sorry. That blog post started a fresh firestorm, with some people becoming deeply invested in my fail and fall. One person went on Facebook and posted a status about me, saying, "I want to destroy her career." Someone made an anonymous email account where they sent anyone who was a brand partner or any upcoming speaking engagement a message suggesting that clients disassociate from me. One popular anti-black misogynist sent his audience to target me, bringing a lot of "go back to Africa" and "bitch die" comments onto my platform. I was in shambles. Whatever tough skin or self-assurance I thought I had, this pierced straight through it. I felt like I was in the Battle of the Bastards, as the troops came at Jon Snow with all sorts of ammunition, and he just looked at them hoping for the best. I was Jon Snow if Jon Snow was lying on his couch crying and hating himself. I couldn't eat. I refused to eat. My boo even took me to a crab boil, which is one of my faves, and I sat there staring at the delicious goodness of perfectly seasoned seafood and barely touched it. Just like how they say God gets mad if you pass by the color purple without acknowledging it, I bet God is pissed every time you waste a good crab boil. I lost 8 pounds in a week. I, who am 120 pounds soaking wet on a gluttonous day when I drink a lot of water, lost 8 pounds. So you know I was looking ghastly AF. And it was my fault. All of it was my fault. I was beating myself up more than anyone else could. It's one thing to disappoint others. That shit sucks. But to disappoint myself was the tougher thing. I felt shame in a way I never have. I was so upset at myself because I made a mistake and said something I shouldn't have. I should have known better. I should have done better. I should have been better. People went looking for things to be mad at me about, but it was my fault for giving them things to find. It was my fault that they could say I'd been insensitive. Or said tone-deaf things. Or sometimes was just stupid. Had I not given them anything, they wouldn't have found anything to use to drag me through the mud. I knew I was wrong. I wasn't a victim of people's meanness as much as I was a victim of my own big-ass mouth. Which sometimes isn't as thoughtful as it should be, or maybe makes a joke that isn't a joke because it demeans. My 2 feet, which were always anchored to the floor, rooted in really liking who I was, felt shaky. I had faced backlash before, but not to this level, and not for this long. It felt unrelenting. So I went dark online. My friends called me to check in, and at the worst moments to remind me of who I really am. They gave me stern talking toes in the middle of assurance, and they kept me from going deeper into the rabbit hole of shame. My partner said, "You let people steal your light." I made an appointment with my therapist, because SOS. I was not okay. A few days later when I went in, she told me I was exhibiting symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Disrupted sleep, lack of appetite, and an acute sense of being in danger even in innocuous moments. The incident had knocked me off my square in such a major way. I was drop-kicked off my game and I ran away and hid. I was afraid I would never recover from this thing, and my name was taking an irreparable hit. I legit wanted to quit everything and move to a small town somewhere and be a librarian. Because. Dramatic. The worst part. It made me afraid of my voice. I questioned my judgment. Up until then, I had walked through life rarely doubting my confidence in my voice, the biggest gift God had given me. But after facing this very public backlash, born from using my voice in a careless way, I began second-guessing my gift. I was scared of my own bold shadow. Shit. If I say this thing, will people get mad? I felt flutters in the pit of my stomach whenever I'd want to say something, truly afraid and taken right back to the moment when I saw my name on Twitter's trending list. I stopped writing. I stopped speaking up. I hid. For a year, I didn't write anything on my website besides the TV recaps I was commissioned to write. On Twitter, I was extra cautious about posting anything too strong, lest I ruffle the wrong feathers and start trending again. On other social media, I'd still post about what was on my mind, but I did it with extra, "You sure you wanna say this?" I justified not using my voice as, well, maybe I need to evolve out of blogging. Maybe my work needs to look different. Hey, I'm still saying what I need in other ways, through my podcast and whatever. I was still feeling bruised by the humiliation of it all, so I wanted to leave it behind. That was my ego talking. That was the failure talking. It was fear talking. My book agent was asking me, "So what's book 2 gonna be about?" I told her I was still thinking about it. What would I even write about? What did I have to say? Almost a year to the date, another legendary death rocked the world. Toni Morrison passed away on August 5, 2019. The writer who I quoted on page 2 of I'm Judging You. The Do Better Manual. If there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, you must write it. Ms. Toni told us that, and who was I not to listen? Her words had literally been life's instructions for me. She was the woman who made me too shy to call myself a writer because I felt like her words were too great for me to be in the same category with her. But that woman had left this world, and her death convicted me. I'd never met her, but her permanent absence jolted my spirit awake. It wagged a finger at me because I was choosing to lie down instead of doing what I was put here to do. I was reminded that writers don't stop because people critique them, no matter how harsh they think it is. They don't abandon their craft because they feel misunderstood or their feelings get hurt. They don't leave their purpose behind because they have loud detractors. They take the mistakes they made and let them spur them to make even better art. God said weapons would form. You do not let them prosper by letting them stop you from using your gift. The first thing I wrote was a tribute to Toni and what she meant to me, as the favorite teacher I never met. After that, I got the idea for this book. I had spent a year afraid of myself, of my voice and my gift. I could no longer let fear dictate my life. My journey is truly one of fighting fear constantly. I failed very loudly, very publicly. But how could I use that for something greater? That sense of defeat was for the greater good of me, and the only way it would be for not as if I didn't become a better version of me because of it. I asked myself, why did it happen as it did? How do I move forward? What am I supposed to learn? So many lessons. When it comes to failing, we come up with stories about who we are because of it. That is where the shame came in for me. I felt like I got caught with my pants down and my ass all out in the open. I felt exposed and raw, and thought everything I'd achieved was clearly a sham because it was about to get taken away. As people pointed out whatever old problematic thing they didn't like from my raving dumbass 24-year-old self on Twitter, I felt embarrassed. The lessons were plenty. The old me was necessary. With therapy, I began to realize the girl from then was necessary because she became the woman from now. And I had to thank her for the work she did and the person she was, because she led me here. Then I had to thank the me now, in her 30s, who is more aware of herself, the strength of her voice, and the world. I couldn't be me without her, so my shame was not needed. I needed to give myself grace and forgive myself for my mistakes. I had to be kind to that girl from then, the one who was afraid to call herself a writer because she didn't think she could measure up to the title. That girl could have never written this book, could have never confidently showed up in these rooms that I've been in and done her best work. The person who used to talk before she'd think could not be the person with the platform that I have now because I wouldn't use it as responsibly as I do now. I think about how the person who made $35,000 a year could not be the same person who signed a six-figure book deal. I wouldn't even know how to handle the taxes, let alone what to do with the cash. But that girl had to exist so I could write about her and her mistakes and the things she had to learn through the fire. Luvvie 1.0 had to be here so she could grow into Luvvie 3.0, who could write this book. None of us belong on pedestals. Not one of us. We are flawed people whose jobs make us seem grander than we are. I know I can be trash and have garbage ways. I am not infallible or smarter than someone just because I have the platform. Nah. I got kicked off my pedestal and I hope people didn't put me back on it, because I don't deserve it. Leave me down here, because I can't live up to the standards folks often ascribe to personalities they follow. I will disappoint you. I will let you down. I will fuck up. But I will hopefully never stop learning how to show up in the best way I know how. I will not stop growing. I will not stop holding myself accountable to who I say I am. When these moments of reckoning happen, we need to not waste them. Another lesson for me. The judge will be judged. I often challenge people to do better. This also means I will be challenged to do the same. I will be in the court of public opinion too, because I'm bound to make mistakes. What matters is how I handle it and move forward. That is what I will truly be judged on, and on this, I was held in contempt. I should have apologized without defending or explaining myself. People want to feel seen and heard when we have done harm. I needed to atone, take accountability, and promise to show up differently next time. I did harm, and I should have copped to it early. A proper apology would have been something like, "Hey everyone, today has been distressing, and to see my name in the lights in this way is something I am not proud of. I fucked up and I'm sorry. My words made people upset. My intention, whether good or not, doesn't matter, because we all know intention is not synonymous with impact. I should know better and should be better. I need to make sure that I am being even more thoughtful with how I show up in the world. I have a major platform and with that comes higher expectations. I won't always meet them. In fact, I expect to fall short again. But at least I can aspire to be better than I am. I'm sorry. That humility could have saved me a lot of trouble, because I was wrong. Not just because of what I said, but how I acted at being challenged. I should have taken the knee and moved forward. After all this, it also became clear to me that my name was bigger than I realized. I'm not just some random Chicago girl by way of Nigeria, tweeting and cracking jokes with her friends. I am brand Luvvie, with more than 1 million total followers on social media. I am representing company I love. No matter how much I think of myself as some girl who started writing one day and cool things happened, I am at the helm of massive reach, and it is clear that my responsibilities are greater. My voice carries. My platform is large. I owe the best of me to an audience that's larger than ever before and bigger than I ever imagined. I have to act accordingly. This doesn't mean I change my voice, but it does mean I have to move slightly differently. I used to be David, but now I'm Goliath, and that's a tough pill to swallow. I'm no longer the underdog who can throw bones, but the big dog who gets bones thrown at me. That, for me, is frightening. It means who or what I speak about now has to be different, because my platform is larger. The whole incident felt like God was grabbing my face and telling me, "You're at new levels." I need you to move different and be more responsible. I mean, did he have to make it so painful? Probably. My stubborn ass probably needed that jolt of reality. Message received. Holiness. I hear you, okay. I was reminded I should always punch up, not down. Punching up is when you challenge someone with more power than you. Punching down is when you go at someone with less. Yes, I need to punch up, but who that includes has shifted because I now wield more influence and weight. I can find myself punching down if I'm not cognizant of this dynamic and my stacking privilege. This is why humor is dynamic, and why comedians have to change their routines over the years. The legendary comedian who is doing $50 million Netflix specials can't do the same jokes he did when he was a struggling stand-up comic. I also learned that I can be proud of my work, but I can't tie my worth to it, because it can be fleeting. While we should own our dopeness, we can't let all the outside praise we get go to our heads. People will love us one day and hate us the next. This experience made me more kind, because being at the end of hateful arrows feels harrowing. I've been scathing in the past in my critiques of others, and it was a necessary heart check to chill on that. Growing up looks like being kinder. Being in the midst of that storm reminded me I need to help other black women when they find themselves in similar positions. To be a visible black woman, especially, is to commit to being abused over and over again in hopes that it doesn't pierce your heart too much. I now make it a point to check in on the prominent ladies I know when it becomes their turn in the fire. Hearing from caring voices, even if they aren't super close to you, is helpful. It also made me want to vigorously defend black women who find themselves called out for mistakes that aren't hate-filled. This platform and this voice ain't just for the comfortable times. If people come for me because I've defended someone, I'll deal. I am loved and valued. I deserve to be defended and protected even on my worst days, and so do others. It takes a lot to be a prominent black woman. I admire Beyoncé, Serena, and Oprah for more than their work. I deeply respect the grace they show under constant pressure. They're photographed when their expression could be translated to shady and they trend for days, as all types of people make up whole storybooks about their frame of mind. And they keep quiet through it. That is what I don't have yet and I'm trying to learn. The art of shutting the fuck up even as people try to come for you. One of my mistakes in all this was responding at all to some of the people who were coming for me. I'm the person who usually tells my friends to chill when something similar happens to them. I didn't take my own advice and it blew up spectacularly in my face. I fanned the flame. Yes, I felt hurt, but we ain't gotta attend every fight we're invited to. Next time, I need to ask, what would Beyoncé do? Sis wouldn't even act like she saw it. Instead, she'd be somewhere creating amazing art as people talk about her recklessly. It's why I had to start paying my Beehive memberships. That woman deserves a standing. My prayers need to change. As I grow and my career grows, I need to say stronger prayers. There's nothing I can really do besides try to always be thoughtful and learn from my mistakes, but I can't say I will never make a mistake again. So if I make the next mistake, does that mean I am now going to be knocked off my square for the next year, because all these arrows decided to point at me? I'm also going to pray to be fortified in the instances when people call me what I'm not, because it's not going to stop. I can say the sky is blue tomorrow and somebody might be offended by it. Right. If they chose to be offended by it, they will be offended by it. I have to be fortified, because when the weapons form, may they not prosper. I can't not fulfill God's assignment for me because some people don't like me. I need to learn and get fortified and pray that my armor is stronger than ever, that it gets stronger by the day, that my feet are more solid and planted than ever. I need to pray that as a leader, I'm showing what it looks like to fail and move past it. I think of my grandmother, whose prayers I know cover me every single day. Those 3-hour middle of the night prayers gotta be responsible for some of my success, because I've made it here in spite of and because of myself. I am a recovering asshole who will use every face plant as a step stool to be better, smarter, tougher, kinder, and more gracious. I'm thankful for that D I got in chemistry. I'm so glad I got fired, laid off from my marketing job. And trending on Twitter for being reckless with my words was a blessing. Each time I fall on my face, it's a cosmic reboot and redirection that sets me on the path I'm actually supposed to be on. It is a recalibration of my life's GPS. Failure always gets me to higher ground. I have nothing to regret cause the falls are necessary for me to learn the things I do not know, and they are plenty. We can fall flat on our faces and rise up in the ashes of our old selves, better than before. I sleep well at night because I'm at peace with myself and my soul. I wake up in the morning and look at myself in the mirror and really love the woman who looks back at me. She's flawed AF but knows without question that she is better than who she used to be. And she knows her mistakes do not define her, her lessons do. Similarly, you are not your worst moment or worst mistake. You know who you are. Go back to chapter 1. That exercise comes in handy when you're in the middle of firestorms. In the midst of your mistakes, it might feel like the world is collapsing or you won't ever recover. But everything, even your worst moments, is temporary. Humiliation is temporary. The acute pain is temporary. Know that grace and accountability can coexist. Grace makes you forgive yourself for your mistakes, and accountability lets you know that the lesson learned must be remembered and those mistakes can't be frequent. It's a dance you must do. Failure is life's greatest teacher, and the only way we truly fail is to learn nothing from the valleys we experience. Ask for more. We fear disappointment. One of my favorite mantras, which I heard a long time ago and still hold dear, is, it's better to live a life of, oh well, than a life of, what if. Many of us are living the what if life because we do not know how to ask for what we want, what we need, and what we would like. We are constantly leaving things on the table that could be for us because we are afraid of the no's that may come. We don't want to deal with the blow that comes from putting ourselves out there and possibly getting rejected, so we end up being people who never ask. I wonder what would happen if we were given the permission to constantly ask for more, from life and the universe, from relationships, from bosses and colleagues. What might happen when we realize that no won't kill us but yes could change our lives? I love this sentiment by the brilliant Paulo Coelho, author of one of my fave books, The Alchemist. The mere possibility of getting what we want fills the soul of the ordinary person with guilt. We look around at all those who have failed to get what they want and feel that we do not deserve to get what we want either. We forget about all the obstacles we overcame, all the suffering we endured, all the things we had to give up in order to get this far. Our inability to ask for things comes from a lifetime of learning that to ask is often to be disappointed. It's a well-earned fear. At no point do I think we wake up one day and all of a sudden find ourselves mute when it comes to asking for what we want. Instead, I think we've all had experiences that tell us it is risky to ask people for things. We are team I will figure it out myself or team I got it, don't worry about me. Why? For a few reasons. Some of us became these people by necessity. We might have had to raise ourselves because our parents weren't there, physically or emotionally. Or growing up, we didn't have friends to count on. Maybe no one ever provided for us, so we've had to figure out how to do it ourselves. Maybe the only person there for us was us. Perhaps we've had to be this person because no one else has proven loyal, reliable, or stable enough to show up in the way we need. Or maybe we became this person because we had some painful experiences the times we did ask for something. Maybe it blew up in our face one time too many and now we're afraid of asking. Maybe someone threw something they did for us in our face during a moment of strife, and we've carried that experience around with us as more reason to never ask people for anything. Whatever your reason is, it's valid and I don't blame you. As someone who has had more than a few, what the hell was that? Experiences related to me asking for help, I get it. I feel you on a spiritual level. We go together like kettle and corn. That is why I'm here to tell you to ask for more anyway. Unfortunately, the reason doesn't make not asking any less harmful or stunting to your life. When we don't know how to ask for things, for more, we aren't getting everything life can offer us. Does life owe us something? Not really. But life has a whole treasure trove of things we can tap into, which if we don't ask for, we don't get. Like in James 4:2. Quote. We have not. Because we ask not. I know it's not as black and white as that, but I still repeat that passage to myself because it is an affirmation of what I'm supposed to be doing and what is in my capacity. I'm less attached to the result knowing that I at least did my part. The asking. Anything else is a bonus. It took me going to therapy to really understand that I was somebody, in all my boldness, who was afraid to ask for more. Let me tell you how my therapist, who is a kind middle-aged black woman, who could be anywhere from 35 to 65 but I can't tell, because we tend to be ageless and our black refuses to snap, crackle, or pop, told me about my whole life. I like going to therapy because I enjoy paying for someone to read me for filth. During certain sessions, I end up word vomiting about feeling stressed out. I pride myself on being team I get shit done no matter what, both professionally and personally, and I handle pressure well, but even Atlas shrugged after a while, didn't he? One day, I was particularly stressed out about work plus home stuff, and my therapist said, "Have you asked your partner for help?" Me. No, I got it handled. He got things going on too. This is mine to handle. Her. Why? Don't you think he would want to help you as much as he can? Me. He would. He's actually asked me what he can help with. Her. Why don't you tell him to take some things off your plate? Me. Well, I figured that because I said I got it, I want to stick to my word. Her. I see why you're stressed out. Your husband sees it too and has asked to help, but you aren't letting him help. What do you think that does? Me. Frustrate me because I need the help and frustrate him because he wants to. Oh, you just tried to get me with my own wisdom. Her. Blank stare. Me. You're right. I'm tripping. Her. Do you not think you deserve to be helped? And that is when my head blew off my neck. Do I not think I deserve to be helped? Auntie, read me. Drag me. Slay me. This is how we ended up exploring how I put boulders on my back while other people carry rocks because I would rather shoulder the burden. This is partly because I trust me more to handle it, and partly because I don't think I deserve the help because I tell myself that others need help much more than me. Meanwhile, my back is breaking, also I can feel like I'm helping others not break theirs. Did I just read you your life? Yes, I did. Welcome to club. I got it even to my own detriment. Our meetings are every other Tuesday. Please bring snacks that won't cause heartburn. Let me break me down for you. I have always been the responsible one and I feel a deep sense of responsibility for myself, my path, and my actions. I was the 7-year-old who never had to be told to study or do her homework because she was already doing it. I got straight A's and condemned myself for the B's before anyone else could. I don't want people to worry about me. The world is enough of an unpredictable junkyard. I have never wanted to give those I love or those who I am around another reason to be anxious, upset, or stressed out. If I were a superhero, I'd be super independent. I don't need anything from anybody. I haven't even asked anyone, my mom included, for money since I was 17 years old. And I've worn this as a badge of honor for a long time. As the responsible one, that same insistence on not being a burden on anyone also came with the self-imposed duty to ensure the people around me were doing okay. Since I was fine, I felt obligated to make sure they were too. This turned me into the giver who never asks, and that is a problem. Shout out to those of us who are givers. We define ourselves by how much we give to others. Our benevolence as a core value is something we are very proud of. Remember chapter 1. Yeah, anti-generous over here. However, Givers are usually bad at being takers, which is a liability. There are so many people who will give you the shirts off their backs but don't know how to receive something as simple as a compliment without feeling like they have to hand it back somehow. I'm a recovering giver, meaning I used to be unable to ask for help or receive gifts without feeling like I owed someone. We gotta check our motives when all we do is give without knowing how to receive. How can we allow people to fully show us love if we don't allow them to be generous to us? We love the feeling that we get when we're like, hey, I just did this thing for somebody. So then why don't we allow others to get the same feeling when they give something to us, whether it's a compliment, a gift, or their time? When you are only handing out without receiving, you might be unknowingly leading with your ego. Maybe deep down, you love being thanked. Maybe subconsciously, it feeds your ego to always be captain, here you go. We love how good it feels to give. Generosity also helps us hide our vulnerability. Always handing out help but never asking for it is ensuring we aren't seen as weak. Or maybe we don't think we deserve moments of service ourselves. We don't want people to think we're taking advantage of them. We don't want to show up as somebody who needs somebody else. It's a problem because we are not being fully honest with ourselves and the people in our lives. A lot of us will find ourselves in crisis before we say, I need help. And in those moments of overwhelm, odds are we do not have anything to give, because we're already exerting ourselves to the limit. If we need help, it shouldn't depend on what we can give right back. You don't have to be drowning before you raise your hand and ask for help. When I began to learn I can receive without being indebted to someone, I began to get freer. I'm still a work in progress on that front. But I now say thank you and mean it. Now I commit myself to giving to someone else, knowing that they don't owe me either. I have my family and my friends and my village to thank for forcing me to become somebody who got okay with asking for and receiving help. The way the people I love show up for me, give me so much of their time, money, energy, advice, and presence, forced me into taking from them. They used love as action to disarm me and to give me help before I could even ask. Their love taught me that when I need something from them, I can ask. My village also taught me that there are some acts that are so meaningful that no matter how much I could try to repay them, there is no tit for tat because each act of benevolence stands on its own. There's no one thing you can do that's going to feel like an even exchange. Shoot. If someone gives you their kidney, you can't turn around and give them your lungs. That's not how it works. I have received some large gifts in my life that have stunned me into silence, driving this lesson home. Take, for example, my bachelorette party. 9 of my girlfriends flew me to Anguilla, first class. They bride napped me and took me on a 6-day trip to paradise, taking care of everything. There were no details left untouched. They even made a website to commemorate the trip, and we used the hashtag #bridalive. The trip was loud, flashy, and expensive AF. We stayed at the Four Seasons Villas. Me that just got nice things yesterday. I still remembered, in the past, sharing a bed with friends on trips we insisted on taking, even though we could barely pay our bills. I remembered when the Four Seasons was in my vision statement. Now we were here and it was real life, and I had friends who insisted on giving me this experience. On the trip, I felt deep gratitude because 9 people thought I was deserving of so much of their time, their money, their energy, and their love. I thought back to my therapist saying, "Do you not think you deserve this?" I spent those entire 6 days in awe because I was like, wow, I'm worthy of this. It made me realize that a lot of the times when we don't know how to receive without feeling like we owe somebody, it is because we might not think we are worthy of that gift, or we might not think we can live up to it. I couldn't begin to repay it, so I just had to take it all in and be thankful. It was game-changing because no one is obligated to do things for us, small or large. But sometimes you will receive gifts and love strictly because you are you, no other reason. When people do that and give to you, receive it. Try not to question it so much. Try not to be like, why me? Why not you? What you can do is continue to be kind and generous. In the process, do not be so quick to turn down help or gifts. Know that you are deserving of the favor because you are here. In times of frustration, I've lamented how I've always done everything myself, and this is why I don't need anyone to do anything for me. Meanwhile, I've gone to the ends of the earth for people, even when they didn't ask. One day, my husband basically channeled my therapist and read the scrolls of my life to me. He said, "You being so open-handed seems to be a function of you not wanting to exert the same pain point on somebody else. I'm going to challenge you to stop saying how much you don't need from someone. I want you to stop saying how much you don't ask for things from people and how much you take care of everything yourself. You say it out loud so often. I ask that of you because what I hear when you say that is you're wearing it as a badge and accomplishment. If this was the struggle Olympics, that may be okay, but it's not. You should see the way my edges instantly retracted into my scalp. Did you just read me so accurately with my own words? You know when someone says something that is so on point that you have no comeback because your brain is doing the, but they're right, running man. That's what happened when he said that to me. The realization that I had come to define myself as someone who did not need anyone. What cookie did I think I was gonna get by running myself into the ground? What martyrdom did I think I was aiming for? What is the win when we insist on being self-sufficient even in the moments of drowning, when all we need is a hand as we flail in water? Are you saying there's no lived a low-maintenance life and needed no one cookie? Well damn. I think about the Brené Brown quote. I've learned that gasping for air while volunteering to give others CPR is not heroic. It's suffocation by resentment. A whole sermon. We are so used to being called strong, especially black women, that some of us consider it a weakness to need the support of the people we consider community. We cannot base who we are on how little help we need, or how much we are helpful to other people. Because what if there comes a time when we have nothing to give? Does that render us terrible people? Do we lose our compass? Do we feel less than because of it? When we don't ask, or we don't receive well, we might be blocking our blessings. This goes beyond the times we need help. When we do not know how to ask for what we need or ask for more, we end up receiving less than we should. The truth is, people will give you the absolute minimum if you let them. Sometimes we aren't even letting them. We are afraid of being too difficult or demanding, hey, chapter 2, so we accept the first thing they offer us. I come from a long line of hagglers, and my grandmother was definitely one. Haggling is an exercise in asking for more until you are satisfied. So why did I come to America and forget my haggling ancestry? I should have been treating job negotiation like a Nigerian market, where the motto is, always ask for what you want. The first no isn't what they mean. Keep asking, and even if you don't get exactly what you want, you are as close to it as you can get. At least you tried, is a way of life. When Mama Faloyan would come to the United States, she'd ask me to take her to her favorite flea market in Chicago. By me taking her, she meant she needed me to come to be extra hands to hold the plethora of stuff she would be buying. Also, to push the second cart. My freshman year of high school, K-Swiss shoes were all the rage. My mom, being the coolness blocker that she was, see also. Single mother who couldn't afford to buy $75 shoes, wasn't getting me a pair. And since my allowance was, like, $5 a week, the save up for them would take months. So me and grandma went to this large warehouse that honestly instantly overwhelmed me. I had insta regret the moment we stepped in there because 10,000 square feet of disorganized bins of stuff you have to rummage through is my idea of hell on earth. That and having to take a Spirit Airlines flight. I was ready to drop all my sins for sainthood because if real hell was this, I surely wasn't trying to go. After about 90 minutes of rummage fest, I somehow stumbled upon a pair of all-white K-Swisses. They were mid-length, with the 5 stripes and the white laces. What? Look at my luck and God. Those shoes were the apple of my eye instantly. Teenage Luvvie was tacky, though, so she didn't know them shoes were some uglass things, and that is why they ended up in a bin in a random warehouse, not in a store on a shelf. All I knew was, oh snap, I can have name brand shoes. I didn't care that they basically looked like high-top socks with rubber at the bottom, or that someone had done a bad job of gluing rubber under some dingy socks. Because, mind you, they were white fabric, not even leather. Grandma saw my excitement, cause I was probably looking like Eeyore before this, and told me to put them in the cart. I was trying to not get my hopes up, because I knew they weren't gonna make it home with me. They were gonna be too expensive. I just knewed it. So we get up to the cashier and the shoes ring up as $25. I'm like, well, there goes that. She's gonna drop these. Instead, Grandma goes, my friend. These are for my granddaughter. Please. Can I have them for 10? I'm in my head thinking, this lady is nuts, while also silently mourning the shoes I almost had. Y'all. When I tell you my grandma somehow got them to agree to selling these shoes to her for $8. What voodoo she do? And they threw in a mug she saw by the register for free. I was like, this is anointing. Just bold and manifesting clearances. Goddamn superwoman. Ask and you shall receive indeed. Ask boldly, believing the answer is already yes. I wore those K-Swisses out. Those 5 stripes were probably down to 2 by the time I was done with them. But the audacity to ask. It was everything. Ask for what you want. The universe might surprise you and say yes. Let me drop a quick scripture on you right quick. Matthew 7:7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. What would happen if we all had the sense of entitlement of a steward who couldn't even hold a candle to us in a game of Scrabble? What would happen if we all asked for things with the confidence of a Connor who we'd beat in an IQ test by at least 25 points? Can you imagine the game-changing wave of us good, smart, thoughtful people having the nerve of a Garrett who didn't have the sense God gave a goat? My goodness. We might get somewhere. Or what if we all had the boldness of an older Nigerian woman who believed she can get what she wants through kindness and that smile of hers? Mountains could move. Do not force yourself to want less to appease other people. Do not dumb down your needs so you won't want to ask for more. You want what you want. Ask for it. A no will not kill you. Ask for more. Because if the fear of disappointment stops you from going for what you want, then you are choosing failure in advance. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we don't think that we should ask for the thing we want, whether it's a promotion from our boss, or more acts of service from our partner, or more attention from our friends, then we are opting for the no, instead of trying for a yes. If we get the no, we are still in the same place we are, losing nothing. But what if we got the yes, which would lead us closer to where we want to be? When you choose to let fear keep you in your comfort zone, you might think that you're avoiding disappointment when what you're really doing is choosing that path, because you will know that you aren't getting what you want and need. The no will not kill you, but the yes could save you. My life changed when I got the courage to ask for what I want. The courage to ask people to stop doing things I don't like. The courage to ask people I work with for what I thought I deserved. The courage to ask my partner for what I needed to feel loved. The courage to ask my friends for their shoulders when I needed to cry. The courage to ask the universe, God, for things I thought were far-fetched. I know we've heard, closed mouths don't get fed. It is cliché. But it is true. We close our mouths as people do things to disrespect us. We close our mouths because we do not think we are in the position to ask. We close our mouths because we're afraid of no. When I learned to open my mouth, my life transformed. I didn't get smarter or cuter or less loud or less quiet or more interesting. But I was no longer so afraid to be vulnerable and say when I needed help. I was no longer tied to the thing of, I'm the one people don't worry about. I humbled myself and realized that life is not about taking on more than we can stand so someone else can soar on our backs. You know what happened when I started asking for more? Magic happened. By magic, I mean people gave me more. The love I hoped people felt from me came back infinitely. I felt stronger, knowing that in this world, I didn't walk alone. I felt more loved, because I gave people a chance to show up for me, and to feel just as good as I did when I was leading by giving. And I felt more confident, because things I've dreamt, and some things I never even fathomed, started happening for me.